Hi everybody and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video. Today, if you haven't seen this already, you better look on Twitter. They've released the new cards coming out to Call of the Mountain. And it looks like Trundle is going to be released as the newest champion from Frejlord. I'm kind of surprised to see Frejlord here, to be honest. I thought they would release more Targon cards before going into an existing region, but now we got two existing regions in a row with Ionia and now Frejlord. And yeah, I'm just kind of interested to see how many Targon champions they're actually going to reveal in this part of the expansion, in this part of the set. So we'll see what happens. Now, with this new keyword here, we have a new keyword, Behold. Behold, you get a bonus if you have a type of card in player hand. This is kind of confusing until you read the abilities of these cards. So, Faces of the Old Ones, a 2-drop, round start. If you behold an 8+ cost card, get an extra mana gem this round. So you get a reward for having an 8+ cost card in hand. This is really interesting because it affects how you mulligan at the very beginning of the game. You're like incentivized to keep these like really mana heavy cards in hand. The interesting thing about Faces of the Old Ones is that this is now kind of a mana ramp card, an extra card to Frejlord, which will allow you to mana ramp a little bit easier and get these more expensive cards out. Yeah, so this would be a good card to start out with if you're trying to mana ramp. It's still a 0/2. So it can block. You only get an extra mana gem at the round start. So if this card is taken out, then you don't get the additional mana gem afterwards. Kind of like the Warding Storms, I believe. As soon as it's taken out, that kind of advantage goes away. And so I kind of have mixed feelings about how good this card is going to be. It is an earlier game mana ramp card that we don't have yet, and which will be available. But yeah, you have to keep it alive. And so it's just kind of sitting there. You're not blocking with it, you're not attacking with it. You don't really want to block with it because that kind of destroys the strategy of mana ramp, and you kind of, unless they release more cards where you can get more mana, and then just let these cheaper cards die, then that might work. But as it stands now, I just don't know the advantage of putting this card out. It doesn't really offer you anything. It just has to sit there. It doesn't even have like the immobile keyword that was introduced with Bilgewater. So I mean, you do have the option of blocking with it, but yeah, I just don't see how this is going to be a super good card because it gives you a little bit more value for later, but going against aggro decks is going to be awful. Going against yeah, just even mid-range might be awful in this type of deck. We'll see what happens. Alright, so the next card here, Troll Scavenger. So when I'm summoned, if you behold an 8+ card, grant me +3/+0. Let's see here. +3/+0. So it becomes a 4/3 card, and it's a 2. So this card is actually pretty good for a 2-drop. If you can aggressively mulligan for these 8 mana cards, then you might get some good value out of this card. It kind of depends on how the deck is constructed and how good you can play towards mana ramp. You don't want to be oversaturating your deck with these 8+ cards, so that could be a kind of liability. Now, interestingly enough, we did have Arbiter of the Peaks introduced. And this starts out as 10 mana. So that could be an easy inclusion into a deck like this where early on you can keep it into your hand, but it's not quite as bad as keeping another card worth the same amount of mana because it's going to be reduced in cost every time you play a spell. They could release another card like that in Frejlord as well. I wouldn't be surprised. Keep your eyes out for that because that's kind of where these mana ramp decks go. Frejlord already has a ton of them though, these high cost units. So, and it looks like we're getting another one, but we got like War Mother's Call, we've got Tryndamere. Yeah, just a lot of different heavy hitting cards for in-game Frejlord, and they're kind of the deck that's geared to mana ramp itself. So, yeah, they could release, like I said, an Arbiter of the Peaks type card in Frejlord. Just watch out for that. I wouldn't be surprised. Alright, so this 4-cost card, Troll Ravager. When I'm summoned, if you behold an 8+ card, grant me Regeneration. So Regeneration, in case you don't know, that's the ability that Braum and Garen have. As well as leveled up Maokai and maybe a few other cards as well. She Who Wanders, I believe, has it as well, just recently. It's a pretty good ability. So the overall stat line of this 4-drop is probably average. 4-drop, you probably have a 3/4, 4/4 are pretty average type cards for a 4-drop. So 3/5 is pretty good. Maybe just a little bit above average. And then if you have this 8+ card in hand, it gets regeneration. So the extra health is really useful and getting extra value out of regeneration. Regeneration as well, just a card that has that is a good target for buffing up, using kind of spells to buff up these units and get them more value out of their health stat. And yeah, overall, I think this card is okay. It would be better if it had an ability like Overwhelm. There's another card in Frejlord that Overwhelm, the Scar. I can't remember what her name is. Anyway, she has Overwhelm and Regeneration as well. I kind of like that ability better, so she might be just a better Troll Ravager. She, I think, is a 5-drop though, but I think she works better because she has Overwhelm, and so the stats kind of are able to stack and actually get value and hit into the Nexus. So, yeah, Troll Ravager just seems like a weaker version of her. Let's see, this 8-drop. So, Usgar the Ancient has Challenger and Regeneration as well. In a mana ramp deck, this card might actually find a place. Challenger is a super good ability, and he also has this regeneration. The combination of those two keywords is super good. If they have viable ways of getting mana ramp to work like efficiently in Frejlord, this card could be super good in that type of deck. Once again, though, it would be used as more of kind of a board sweeper, I guess, just kind of picking off the units that you don't want to block into your own units, and then having it gain its life back at the end of the round. Once again, though, it doesn't have Overwhelm, so it's not making contact with the Nexus, and it's relatively expensive, and so you have to wait for it to level up. So maybe I'm not quite as hot on it as I thought I was. The stat line is pretty good, but once again, it has to get out relatively early in order for the stats to kind of make sense. And where it doesn't have Overwhelm is not dealing direct Nexus damage. And also because it has Challenger, it's kind of asking for it to be blocked into smaller units and not get a whole lot of value onto the enemy Nexus. So maybe not as good as a lot of people will think originally when they see the card. Alright, so Troll Chant. Give an ally +0/+2 to give an enemy -2, -0 this round. Okay, so in case you guys don't know, in League of Legends, Trundle's kind of ultimate is a stat sapper, I guess. He leeches kind of other champions' stats, makes them weaker while he makes himself stronger. That's kind of what this card is doing. And actually, I kind of like the way that they balance this. So it is not reducing the chance of their card dying at all. It's increasing only the survivability of your card. So it is increasing your health and decreasing their attack. So it doesn't really affect whether their card is going to die or not. That will have happened when you either pull it in, attack, or they defend. So I kind of like the balance of this card. So it just kind of makes your cards more survivable. It doesn't make the enemy's cards any less survivable. It just kind of decreases their attack, increases your health. So if you get what I mean, it's like for being 2 mana, it's a pretty good card for just increasing the survivability odds of your card early on, and I think will get pretty good value later on as well, since it's a 2-cost card. Yeah, I kind of like this card, to be honest. Alright, so 3, Call of the Wild. For the top 4 cards in your deck, draw each Yeti, Poro, and Elnuk, and then shuffle the rest into your deck. So we haven't seen really Elnuks for that long. It's been a while since they've been in the meta. They used to be pretty powerful, and this is another card that synergizes with that. Kind of an interesting card to show in this with these other cards, because it doesn't really relate to them. This is a Yeti, Poro, and Elnuk. As far as I know, these guys are trolls, so you're not going to be pulling them as Yetis. I think this is just a card that they're releasing right now to increase the playability of Yetis, Poros, and Elnuks. All three of those decks are kind of understated at the moment. They're not very well represented, and there's a reason for that. They're just not very good, and there's not a lot of there's not a lot of variability in the way you can play those decks. You kind of have to construct them in certain ways in order to get them to work properly. Not a lot of variability and kind of boring to play, and a lot of people don't like those types of decks. So adding more cards is probably good. Let's see this ability again. For the top 4 cards in your deck, draw each Yeti, Poro, Elnug, then shuffle the rest into your deck. So you really have to be building decks around Poros, Yetis, and Elnuks to get a lot of value out of it. Almost a combination of them. The only one that you really have a ton of is Poros. The rest, Yeti and Elnuks, there's really not a ton of them. Yetis are kind of expensive. The Enraged Yeti you only get after a Yeti Yearling dies or you have the Aberosan Trapper. So, I guess this could be kind of an enabler to pull the Enraged Yeti out if you know that it's in your deck, and maybe like a counterfeit copies sort of card as well. Once again, though, you're just drawing them. It's not like they're going out onto the board, so you're spending 3 mana to shuffle through the top 4 cards of your deck. There's no guarantee that you're going to have these cards in it. I don't really like this card. It costs a lot of mana to really not get a ton out of it, and potentially not get anything out of it as well. It's kind of a gamble. If you've constructed your deck, like I said, in a way to produce a ton of these units, then maybe it would work. But niche, I don't really like it. There are other ways to draw cards I think that are going to be more effective than this, and yeah, more efficient ways of drawing cards and just cycling through the deck in general. So don't really like this card, and it's kind of confusing why it's even in this set, unless they release something else once Trundle comes out. I don't really know. Alright, so if I were to rate these cards, the ones that I like the most, I probably like the Troll Scavenger the most. And then Troll Chant, actually, I probably like Troll Chant a little bit better than the Troll Scavenger. Overall, these cards are a little bit underwhelming. Not super hot on any of them. Faces of the old ones could get some play into mana ramp decks, depending on how the rest of the cards look. I kind of fully expect when Aurelian Soul is released that he will also have this Behold keyword, and I imagine that he's also going to be a rather expensive card. They might release other mana ramp options in Targon. Just look out for that. Other ways to kind of ramp up the deck and get these expensive cards out. Yeah. Anyway, I'm guessing that Trundle may be a 5-cost champion, and then 4 or 5 is kind of what I would guess. But we'll see tomorrow. Overall, I'm not super excited about these cards, and I hope we get some better ones tomorrow. Anyway, you can tell me your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.